my name is Cheryl Rotyliano. I work in the Career Services Office at Ithaca College. I'm the Assistant Director for Career Engagement and Education. That title basically means I meet with students as well as alumni regularly in one-on-one coaching appointments, do presentations similar to this, responsible for employer engagement in a few different areas, and then otherwise, trying to make sure that everybody is prepared and thinking about their career development. So I will invite, I have a few other co-presenters. I'll invite them to introduce themselves. Jen, would you like to introduce yourself quick?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Wofford. I direct what's called the Office of Extended Studies. So it was formerly graduate and professional studies. Before that, it was continuing education and summer sessions. So depending when you were at IC, it went through a number of different iterations. It manages for continuing students, summer sessions and winter sessions, the ICCU Exchange Program, ROTC, and then pre-college programs like the Summer College for High School Students and the Ithaca Young Writers Institute, and a number of other programs that don't always fit into the fall, spring semester or the systems that are in place. So I'm here tonight, and I'll be talking to you later about what summer has to offer and how, if you're interested, to register as non-degree students.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be with you tonight. My name is Sandy Kelly. I'm Associate Director in the Office of Admission. And one of my responsibilities is to work with the graduate programs at Ithaca College to connect the application process and admission process. So I'll be talking with you later a little bit about applying for a graduate program.
Great, thank you both. And so I see some familiar names, faces in the participants. So I know some of you, but I thought it would be helpful to sort of see who's here so that I can tailor the conversation as much as possible. So I'm going to launch the poll here. What your class year, when you graduated from IC, if you don't mind letting us know. Great. Okay. Great. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So we have everybody has voted. I'll share the results here. So we're seeing 2006 to 2014 is the highest distribution. We've got a bunch 1980 to 1999. And I'll talk a little bit about the kind of career development process and why some of that may make sense as we go through the cycle in our lives of things kind of changing. Okay, great, thank you. One more poll right now is, I'm curious, when you saw this advertised in different places, what was your sort of incentive to thinking about participating in this webinar? Or being engaged with your career development at the point that you're at right now? Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right, so this is good stuff. So I'll share the results. We have two more people. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you. And for those of you who said other, feel free to use the chat box if you want to share. Okay, recently transitioned careers. Thank you. Okay. So I'll share these results as well, so that we sort of can guide the conversation in this way. So a bunch of you are preparing to change or pivot your career path. Maybe in a brainstorming stage, adjusting career path due to COVID-19. I was expecting at least some of those responses, right? And whether COVID-19 has impacted you directly, or as we see in this, preparing for an uncertain future, whether that's COVID-19 related or sort of, happened on its own. That seems to be a place where people are right now. Okay, and then another distribution of people who are either advancing or building skills for their current positions. Okay. All right. And yes, somebody on a furlough. So expanding skills, thinking about what might be next. Yes, that makes complete sense. Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay. Sorry, I'm dealing with different screens over here, so if I'm looking in the wrong place, that's why. So a couple of the things that I wanted to make sure that we cover tonight. We're going to spend a good portion of time on thinking about what a career change, pivot, shift, right? Like whatever terminology you want to use, what that might look like, what to consider, how to do some brainstorming around options, or how to develop certain skills that you're looking for. We'll spend a good amount of time there and do some self-reflection in that area. As you know, but from the other co-presenters as well, we're going to talk about summer offerings and talk about some of the grad programs in case they are a fit potentially for what you're looking for. And to be able to connect you with some other, Ithaca College resources that exist. So as we look at, who I think decided to attend this webinar, and generally where the world is at, where people tend to get in a certain point of their career. This is a statistic that is gathered by Gallup and is really research based. They do this periodically. I think they're in the process of releasing another one. But talking about how people in the workforce, this is the world's workforce, and then they have data about the US as well, how the great majority, 87% is a really, really high percentage of people who are struggling to find meaning in what they do. And so as a personal goal that I set for myself, as well as, Ithaca Career Services, is to figure out how we can impact this so that the number goes down. In the US, it is a lower percentage. I think it's around 65 to 70, but still much higher than we would hope it to be, right? In this sort of small percentage of the world's workforce, the 13% are the people that want to stay longer in order to get the job done, or are truly putting in extra that has nothing to do with their own career development or salary. And so we want more of those people out in the world, right, to be able to solve the problems that we're facing right now. We need that sort of energy in our workforce. And so we'll do some reflection in hopes that, you can really connect with the meaning of what you do with your work. So as I was looking at the class years of who is here tonight, what's interesting, and I show this to current students, I show this to alumni as well, is to recognize that your career development is a process. So similarly, as people, mature through life, different things become important, less important, things transition, right? People change. It's all a matter of, development as things move forward. Your career development is very, very similar in that way. And so to think of it as cyclical tends to establish some normalcy around some of these concepts, that potentially what you decided to major in college is not as much of a fit as it is now. Or the career that you chose that you did for 5 years, something's not fitting right at the moment, or you want to edit it, right? So it's this continuous process of, setting yourself up to be prepared to do something, actually doing it, going through a reassessment phase of, is this what I thought I wanted? What's missing? What do I want to add to it? And then you're kind of going through this process throughout your life. We probably all heard the statistics about how many times people change jobs throughout their lifetime, which is, different generationally than it used to be. The amount also even above changing jobs is changing industries and changing career paths. And so it's very common. It may not feel that way, right? I can talk about this from a sort of positive psychology stance, and that like I'm going to help to propel you forward. However, that's not to say that I can ignore in any way, shape, or form the stress associated with something like being on furlough and having to, expand skills or think about what's to come next or try to prepare in some way, whether it's for a current job or whether it's for, the fact that you're looking for one. So as we start to do some of these reflections, Hollands Theory of Vocational Choice is one that I refer to quite often. It talks about how people are generally have characteristics about them that fall into themes. Whether it's things like being really oriented towards people or being really oriented towards data, right? Some of these themes that you might be able to identify with in terms of your own interests. This theory also shows that work environments have similar attributes, right? In terms of values, in terms of what the responsibilities of jobs actually are there, what company culture is like. And so being able to actually put some of these attributes together, inevitably it will create, higher satisfaction within employment, but also higher success. As I'm sure you experienced in, college courses, typically the ones that you find the most interesting are the ones you excel at. They're just easier to do most times because, the interest is there, the motivation is higher. So it's really about finding workplaces where you truly feel like it is a fit for you based on a ton of different factors. The factors are complicated. We'll get into that a little bit. And so for this webinar, thinking about, what is the reasoning for your attendance? If it's being prepared to make a change, whatever it may be, a couple of factors may come into play. So think about these things for yourself and your own situation about, why is it that I might be looking for a change? These are common ones. I have completely just brainstormed them into this PowerPoint, but that some people are looking for a change based on job tasks. Maybe they entered an industry they were passionate about, but the job may not be challenging enough. Maybe they don't find the environment stimulating enough. Maybe there's not enough people. Job tasks can also be aligned or misaligned with your own values. If you're doing something that you don't feel like is pushing forward what you care about, that could very possibly be an obstacle, right, with job satisfaction. Culture plays a huge role also in thinking about change. And I think this is one where sometimes this is hard to put your finger on when you decide, something is not feeling right about a current job, or your responsibilities aren't feeling right. And so to think about how much support you feel like you receive from, where you're working now, or how much you would like to receive in comparison, even to places that you've worked, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 5 years ago. It can vary quite significantly. Thinking about social climate. So are interactions with your coworkers something that's really important to you? Is where you are really easy to have those interactions? The culture also, so similar to job tasks, specifically with culture though, is do you feel like it's aligned with your own values? You can see I'm putting a good amount of emphasis on values, and I think it's because typically when we think about what we might want to do, sometimes we're driven by, life factors. And a lot of times values and, reassessed interests are some of the reasons that we're looking to kind of, change or edit or shift in some way. The other things, which are equally as important, is thinking about where you are, if you're satisfied with what the future direction looks like. Are there opportunities within that you feel like are within your reach? Of course, some people are motivated by promotions and money. And then thinking about future plans. Is professional development something that is welcomed, something that's advocated for? And so some of these considerations here are things that I fully recognize are kind of the ideal situation, right? Like, well, I love my job except for these couple of things. And truly, in terms of why the change, I think I would be silly to not think that at least a portion of everybody looking to change a job right now has something to do with necessity. And of course that's a completely understandable reasoning. I would encourage people, even in necessity, to think about some of these factors so that you can end up somewhere where you feel like will be a fit for you later as well. So I'm going to launch another poll to do some self-reflection here for you as well. What do you feel like may be causing either discomfort, dissatisfaction, wanting to move forward with a current opportunity? What do you feel like is driving wanting this change? And of course, you can select multiple boxes here. Okay. Most people just waiting on a few more. Okay. So I'm going to share these results. I think this is really interesting to talk about. And so what I see here as a trend is it's not simple, right? Is anything, right? But that there's a lot of factors that I think contribute, which makes complete sense. What's really interesting is, I do see some of the responses with value alignment, which makes sense. A large number, 7 of you, not challenging enough or boring, which does play a role for sure. And then 9 for each response for desiring more pay and desiring a clear path for development, which, of course, people are motivated by. And so to sort of recognize that I think people are coming from a lot of different places, but all legitimate, things to be thinking about, and as you move through these different stages of career development, there's going to be different points where things like professional development or a clear path to be making more money will be more or less important to you as you continue to go through this cycle. Great, thank you. Okay. So I'm curious to see, this is sort of to guide the conversation also for yourselves to identify where you might be in this process. So on one side of it being, where you want to go. I want this job title at this place, or I want this job title and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Being on the one side, having a tentative idea, but not being totally sure what it might take how to prepare for it, or maybe how to search for it. And then there's typically another group that know the skill set that you already have, but then are kind of trying to navigate what to do with that information, what the transferability is. So I'm going to launch that poll right now for you. Interesting. Okay, so I'll share this poll also. So the majority identified as having skills, not sure what to do with them. We will definitely cover that in a portion of this webinar. What we are going to start with that we thought would be helpful is to talk about some of you that may have a tentative idea. So for those of you that do have a tentative idea, if you're open to it, you don't have to put it in the chat box, just in terms of letting us know if we might be able to talk to specific things. You know, different areas, different career paths. If it's general things like, you know, public relations, or want to work for a newspaper and I'm not sure. Okay, yes, thank you for your question. I will get there. Okay. All right, so let's transition. Like I said, we're going to get to this third option in just a couple minutes.
Do you want me to just pick this up, Cheryl?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay.
You just let me know when to end the screen share.
Okay, thank you. So hi again, everybody. Summer sessions is one of the intersessions that falls within extended studies domain. This summer at Ithaca College, you know, you've all heard this phrase before, has been like no other. People have wanted to remain engaged as all disengagement globally prevails. And so summer has been a way that the college can stay connected to its continuing students, its returning students, but also engage with incoming first-year students earlier. So we've seen an increase, you know, 3 times as large a student body engagement with summer sessions than we have in years past. We've launched a new program for incoming first-year students, so they can take, you know, 1 credit online courses, with the requirement of everybody moving online and engaging remotely. Suddenly, the stigma of online, you know, by necessity, disappeared. And so it provided a lot of opportunity. And the senior leadership team currently at IC decided together to reduce summer tuition. You know, just last year it was $1,100 a credit. It's now $500 a credit for what are called non-degree students. So when you were at IC, you know, engaged and admitted and working toward a degree, you were a continuing or a returning student, also called a matriculated student. Now that your degree has completed at IC, you have the opportunity to take courses outside of a degree program. And so it's called non-degree or extramural study. And so for alumni and community members, that per credit rate is $500, and they reduced it a little bit more for continuing and returning students, understanding that their spring term was unsettled. in light of the massive increase in enrollment we've seen, we've always been, for the last 10 years at least, offering a lot of online courses in summer. So summer was very, very used to offering courses online. And so faculty, were able to pivot very quickly toward our summer session, increasing our summer session capacity. So normally we started at 45 courses and we got up to close to 90. Our summer sessions, if you didn't know or weren't aware of the program when you were at IC, is comprised of 2 5-week consecutive sessions and then a 10-day May session that many students use to get in an urgent course to graduate. But we have one summer session 1, a 5-week session that's ongoing right now, and then another 5-week session that starts June 29th. And so we'll have many, many continuing returning students in those classes. And then we're launching a program that starts at the same time for incoming first-year students. And then we also have a lot of pre-college or high school students who will be doing programming at that time. So Ithaca College, in July, summer sessions 2 is June 29th through July 31st, is going to be pretty hopping in an online format. So I wanted to just kind of introduce you to where you can find what's happening at IC in the summer. And then also, if in fact you have any desire at all to take any of the courses that you see, I want to show you how to search the roster and then where you would go, how to contact me, how to just kind of signal your interest, and then we go from there. So am I sharing my screen, Cheryl? Or not? No. Let's see here. Okay, I'm hoping everybody, Cheryl, you can nod if you see summer at Ithaca. Great. Okay, so understanding that they wanted a place, they're trying to welcome everybody, you all included, into connecting this summer, building community online and staying connected. And so there's an opportunity to, if you see here, find your way to the non-degree study site, and I'll bring you there just 1 second. But also there's been a lot of development in this summer hub so that if you're not just interested in taking a class, that there are things going on beyond the classroom. Now, I have to be honest, these are links to programs that may or may not be relevant to you. They might be dedicated to, a 19-year-old student who doesn't yet have their bachelor's degree and they're developing leadership skills. But there are also opportunities here and a link to the event calendar, because many of the Zoom meetings, all you have to do, like this one, is just to register. So I'm going to take you back up to the non-degree study site, where you can see, it's pretty simple. But here on the left-hand side, there's going to be a link to course offerings, and then a link to a registration form. That registration form, and I'll show you how to browse the course offerings because the system for doing that has changed since you've been here. But the registration form is just a simple online form. It gets emailed to me in my office directly, and then we work with you on obtaining any approvals that are needed in order to register for the class. So just a brief introduction to Banner, which is our course registration system. So I clicked on course offerings, and this is what we want to click: Browse Ithaca College's course roster. It takes us here, and all you've got to do is select whatever term you're interested in. We'll start with a summer 2020. And then you have the opportunity to just, go by instructor or subject. I'm going to recommend that everybody choose the advanced search because that will allow you to select specifically those courses that are still available. So if we were to go to block, second half of the semester, just remember, just one of those things you have to remember, and search it. Well, let's do schedule type online. What you'll get is a list of the online undergraduate and graduate course opportunities that are available beginning June 29th. We have, one that's full, but many of them are not. These are slow reads. here. I don't know if everybody knows what that is. I was an English major, so if there are any English majors out there, we have 4 one-credit slow reads that are being put on by the English department faculty, one on Dune, one on The Tempest, The Dispossessed, which is kind of, I won't call it, it's kind of sci-fi, and then The Moonstone. This is just one example of the courses that are available. And then once you click on the course itself, you'll get more information about, whether or not it's relevant to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop my share now. And Cheryl has said that anybody who's interested at all in, has any questions about this can just chat me, and I'll stay here for a little bit longer. And you can always find me online.
I was just talking muted. There we go. Yeah, if anybody has any questions for Jen, feel free to either message her in the chat box privately, or any suggestions also in terms of things that I see could offer that would be really useful to you. I think we always intend to want to do that, and just if we don't ask, we don't know. And so feel free, if there are particular skills or things that you would like to see added at some point, feedback is certainly welcomed. Okay, so moving on to those of you, especially who identified as having skills and then thinking about how to transition them into something that either has more development opportunities or is something that you might be more satisfied with as well. Typically, I'll share a few different resources with you. Typically, there's going to be 2 kinds of phases. When I meet with people to do coaching, the first one does tend to be doing some research. And so I'll go over a resource that's called ONET. This is a website that is free and open to the public. It is populated information from the Department of Labor. It's a really dynamic website. And so it can allow you to do some of the really in-depth research about what different job titles entail, what skills are needed for different jobs and whatnot. So I'll go into detail there. I put some screenshots up of what it generally looks like. And so this is the homepage where you'll see that you can do searches based on, for example, jobs that have a bright outlook, which is basically jobs that have had a high percentage of growth within a number of years. There's other categories to that in terms of things that you can search by. That tends to be a popular one for obvious reasons. What I'll focus on a little bit also is this advanced search and how that works, because that'll let you really dig in terms of looking at particular industries, for example. Like if you're currently in food services, you're currently in K through 12 education, and you're looking to transition in some way and use similar skills, you can use some of these buttons. Same thing goes with some of the job zones, career clusters. Some of these things are getting at similar things and using different terminology, but clicking around in here really will be helpful. For those of you who identified as having specific skills and not being sure where to go with them or what to do, how to get the most out of the skills that you already have, it has a really neat search feature in here that lets you sort by right here where you see knowledge. There's also going to be interests in here and then skills as well. So for each of these thousands and thousands of job titles that exist in this ONET website, knowledge, skills, and interests are 3 of the things that they're measured that are within each job description. So when you put in different knowledge or skills that you have, this particular feature gives you checkboxes. So for example, if you were to put that you're currently doing public relations, and you wanted to do, you know, what might be related to public relations and identify what are the things that you actually like about what you're currently doing. So maybe if you really enjoy developing and maintaining the company's corporate image and identity, but supervising staff is not something that particularly interests you. This will pull from all the other descriptions of jobs in ONET to give you a populated list of things that have identified to be similar. And this is just with job tasks. You can do the same thing with knowledge and the same thing with interests. So for this public relations search that I did, and like you saw, I clicked like the 4 or 5 boxes. These are some of the things that come up as having closely related tasks to some of the things that I identified using those check boxes. You can go deeper in this also in terms of course, being able to click, okay, well, tell me what an advertising and promotions manager actually does, what education is needed for that type of title, what they typically make for salary, what the work environment can be like, some sample employers. There's a ton of information based on these job titles that lets you dig in a little bit to some data associated with typical titles. So hopefully, I went over that really quickly. I really would encourage you to kind of dig into that website. And again, I'll put it in the chat box for ONET is the name of it. So we have this kind of data-driven, research-based way to do some exploration with skills that you have. Which is going to be some people's style, right? And I totally recognize that this may be my style of doing research, and it's not a lot of other people's. So if you zoned out during this part, completely fine. I'm offering an alternative, and I would honestly recommend that everybody does both. So thinking about researching via connecting with people. Thinking about the fact that the Ithaca College Alumni Network, which you are a part of, has extensive knowledge in, I would be pretty safe to say, in what you're interested in. And so having conversations with some of those people really does add value. For those of you who are thinking about job searching or preparing for a search at some point, this networking process would provide information on different paths, potentially organizations where you might find satisfaction. It's also going to provide you with the opportunity for networking, which typically makes a much more efficient and well-rounded job search as well, being connected with people who can kind of drive you as a human being in an opportunity instead of in a pile of resumes. So there's a ton of different benefits to this in the frame of looking at what things you might be looking to shift to. Would be reaching out to people to have conversations, to do what I kind of call as an informational interview, which is a formal term for asking people questions about what they do, how they like it, what the culture is like, how often they interact with their coworkers, what are the development opportunities, right? Like hearing it from the source is a really, really valuable thing that I saw in the chat box, looking for an organization with a mission that you care about, where it feels meaningful. Some of this can be done through talking with people, and it's just something that is really, really hard to capture online with job descriptions. And so just as one place that you can look to develop some of these connections is LinkedIn. So if you don't know about it already, if you have a LinkedIn profile, if you go to the Ithaca College page, which usually I'll put up here in the search box for Ithaca College, over here on the left, once you click alumni, it gives you various filters that you can use. to try to sort through these, 50,880, which I'm sure the number has grown since I took the screenshot, to sort through to see who could I connect with that will be helpful, that I can ask questions to, and that inevitably, may be able to propel you forward in the path that you're looking to pursue. The IC network is strong. I mean, I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. Strong, engaged, and seriously willing to help. And so in thinking about if anybody has ever reached out to you in this way, it's such a compliment to be told that someone finds interest in what you're doing. Like, oh my gosh, that sounds awesome. It's so interesting, the work you're doing. I think it's so meaningful. It's such a compliment to be reached out to. And we see that with the way people are willing to be responsive and to be helpful to other alums and to students. So in these there's a bunch of different filters that you can use. You can also use the keyword search or a title search. If you, for example, I see copywriting here in the chat. If you wanted to look at what other copywriters in the alumni network are doing, places that they're working, just to get some thoughts of different possibilities that are out there. Whether you're reaching out to these people and really having, good conversations, or you're just kind of gathering this food for thought for yourself of, this person's doing this person's here, and seeing the range of things of what people are doing, either with a similar degree to yours or have similar interests to yours. There's a lot of collecting of information, but also opportunity to connect with people here also. And so some of this research, whether it's on ONET, online, self-reflection work, talking with people, some of that work, inevitably what we could settle on sometimes is needing to gain a skill, needing potentially, if you see on ONET that the career that you'd like to transition to requires a graduate degree. We do see that sometimes in alumni, of course, people who have worked for a while and decide to go back. And so Sandy's here to talk about some of the opportunities that Ithaca does have as part of our graduate programs.
Great, thank you. So I do want to talk about graduate programs. I'll go through what Ithaca offers, and then just a brief sort of recommendations based on my experience of receiving graduate applications, and maybe some advice for those who are looking at that possibility. I do want to remind everybody that Ithaca does offer graduate degrees. Sometimes our undergraduates weren't aware that we had as many or the wide variety of graduate programs that we have. So here we have the ones in the business communications, and then the health science and health humanities and sciences has the education programs. And on the next slide are the programs in the health sciences and music. We also are in development for a physician's assistant program that we hope will come on will be able for the first class to begin in fall 2021. We're not really allowed to kind of publicize anything until it's all gone through all the approvals through the state of New York. So there's not a lot of more information to share right now. On that program, I recommend that you check back if you're interested in the physician's assistant program. So on the next slide, I kind of wanted to go through some things, and I think I'm going to categorize it into good news, maybe some bad news, and then back to good news again. The good news is there's a lot of graduate programs out there, and there's one that's going to probably meet your needs in terms of the area you want to study, the geographic location, whether it's full-time, part-time, online, all of those things. So there's a lot of opportunity for graduate programs. The bad news means that it's hard to give general advice because they are so varied. that you really do need to kind of seek out information. There's not a great source, sort of online search. Many of them are sponsored, and so they kind of give information for those who have signed up. Google is probably the best. Just Google all the things that you're in, the program you're interested in, the location, all those things, and work from there. And then the good news is that you have the opportunity to work with those and an excellent foundation from Ithaca College to be considered for a graduate program. Some things to keep in mind is there's going to be wide variety in terms of when the programs start, how long you have to go, application deadlines, how you apply, what's required. So again, do some research there. When you're planning ahead is good, because if there are specific, say, graduate tests, the GRE or GMAT, you're going to have to build in a timeline that accounts for being able to complete those exams and have those tests ready. Also, if there are prerequisite coursework that you have yet to complete to be eligible for that program, you'll need to factor that in. And just in general, one of the biggest problems I see is when students wait to the application deadline to submit the application, and they haven't factored in that it's going to maybe take a week or two to get their transcripts in, and they haven't given their references enough time to submit letters of recommendation. So just planning ahead, and the graduate program will guide you through that process. So it's really pretty straightforward. I'm really happy to connect with anybody who might have any questions about the process and or about our programs. I would probably refer you to the program chair in that particular area. So there's contact information as well as our website, which gives more information.
Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate it. Okay. So I will get to some of the questions that came through in the chat box at this time, so that I don't forget to tell all of you. Career services, the one-on-one coaching appointments are available to all alumni, all class years, all the time. And so it's a great resource, whether you're looking for a sounding board, just to get some thoughts out to a neutral party. We serve that purpose. If it's advice, connecting to resources, there's a variety of reasons that people make appointments with us. But just to know that we're here, and that you don't have to feel alone in this process. And so here to support